The late afternoon sun cast golden streaks across the winding roads of Pine Haven Gardens as I turned into my new driveway. Keys jingled in my hand, their weight heavy not just in metal, but in meaning. After 15 years of saving every penny from my locksmith business, I'd finally made it. My dream house stood proudly before me, a 2-story Tudor-style home with a slate roof, red brick archways, and a hand-carved brass knocker that glinted like a promise. Home sweet home. I whispered as I stepped inside, inhaling the scent of aged oak and fresh paint. The floors gleamed beneath vaulted ceilings, and the air carried the crisp cleanliness of a place waiting for a life to fill it. I ran my hand along the doorframe, feeling the precision of my custom lock installation, the finest I'd ever designed. The door itself was reinforced steel core oak, with a smart locking system that would make Fort Knox envious. It was perfect. A fortress. A sanctuary. Boxes waited in the kitchen, half unpacked when the doorbell rang. I wiped my hands and opened the front door, expecting a delivery. Instead, a woman stood there with a gleaming smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She was middle-aged, dressed in a salmon-colored blazer despite the summer heat, clipboard clutched like a badge of authority. "Welcome to Pine Haven Gardens," she said with forced warmth. "I'm Deborah Wilson, HOA president." I offered a handshake. "Nice to meet you. I'm just getting settled." She nodded and without invitation stepped into my foyer, her heels clicking on my hardwood. "Wonderful house you've bought. The Hendersons kept it in such good shape. Though I see you've already changed the locks." Her tone turned slightly pointed at the end. "Yes, I'm a security systems professional. I design and install high-end locking systems." Deborah smiled thinly and made a note on her clipboard. "That brings me to some quick HOA business." She continued. "I'll need a complete set of keys, front, back, garage, shed, gate, everything." I blinked, unsure I'd heard her correctly. "Excuse me?" She waved her hand like this was normal. "We keep a master set for emergencies. Maintenance access, fire, health risks, things like that. It's standard in our community." I frowned. "I don't think that's appropriate. I value my privacy. And as a professional, I can't ethically hand over keys to my home, especially not for unsupervised access." Deborah's smile thinned further, her grip tightening on the clipboard. "It's not optional," she said, her tone no longer warm. "It's in the community bylaws. All residents must provide key copies to the FADs to the board for safety reasons. 7 days from move-in." "I'll review the bylaws myself," I said carefully. "I haven't finished reading through them yet." "You'll want to read them soon," she said with a practiced smile. "Compliance is expected." As she turned to leave, a sleek silver car pulled into the driveway across the street. A young man in his early 20s stepped out athletic, sharp-dressed with a smug look in his eye as he surveyed my home. "That's my son Tyler," Deborah said proudly. "Home from college. Helps manage properties for the HOA. You'll be seeing him around." Tyler gave a lazy wave, his eyes scanning my house like a predator. Something in his look made the hairs on the back of my neck rise. They walked away toward the large colonial house across the street. I shut the door and immediately went to my files. That night I read the HOA bylaws cover to cover. There was nothing about handing over house keys. Not one word. I didn't sleep much that night, as someone who'd spent his life securing homes. The idea of giving a stranger keys to mine felt like inviting disaster. It was more than a privacy issue, it was a professional breach of everything I stood for. I'd seen firsthand how thieves operated, how access and opportunity were the only things separating safety from violation. And Deborah Wilson wanted to hand those keys to a neighborhood committee. No chance. At sunrise, I made coffee, printed off the relevant HOA passages, and highlighted every line that supported my case. I was going to be firm but civil. I didn't want trouble, but I wouldn't be bullied. Then came the knock. I opened the door to find a bright orange violation. Notice taped to my door. Notice of HOA violation failure to provide required key copies. Fine. $50 day until compliance. Ref. Community Safety Protocol 4B. I tore it down, stunned. Was this how they operated? Was this the warning shot? Through my window, I spotted Deborah walking briskly down the sidewalk, dressed in expensive athletic wear. Clipboard in hand like a weapon. She didn't look my way, but she didn't need to. The message was sent. The second notice came the next day. Then a third. Each new slip of paper tacked to my door raised the daily fine. $50, then $75, then $100. I'd been in the house for less than 72 hours. I tried to focus on unpacking, on settling in, but I couldn't escape the growing feeling that I was being watched. That's when Frank knocked. My neighbor to the right, a retired veteran with a calm demeanor and a raspy voice. He saw the notice in my trash can and shook his head. "Don't let Deborah push you around," he said. "She runs this neighborhood like a kingdom. Most folks just give in. Makes life easier." "But it's not legal," I argued. "There's nothing in the documents about keys," Frank nodded. "Doesn't matter to her. She's been president 8 years. Never had an election. Runs unopposed." He helped me unload boxes and shared names of neighbors who might be sympathetic. Across the street, Tyler Wilson stood by his car, washing it slowly, but his eyes never left my front door. The HOA wasn't just enforcing bylaws. It was enforcing fear. A few quiet conversations with neighbors confirmed what Frank had warned me about. People didn't question Deborah. They didn't file complaints. They gave their keys because those who didn't, like the Millers down the block, faced a string of mysterious misfortunes. Mild break-in, no forced entry. Grace, an elderly woman with a tiny dog, whispered one day while pretending to chat about her tulips. Nothing stolen, but they gave their keys afterward. How? Could anyone break in without damage? I asked. She gave me a look. Tyler. I didn't say it, but I didn't have to. That night, I reviewed my security feeds. Just past midnight, my front camera picked up movement. Tyler Wilson, walking past my house, slowing to a stop at my front steps. Examining the locks, his hand moved to his back pocket. Then he walked on. That was enough. I called an old friend, an attorney who specialized in real estate and HOA law. After reviewing my documents, she confirmed what I already knew. They have no legal right to demand your keys, she said. And if they keep issuing fines for it, we can challenge them in court. So I drafted a formal letter, cited relevant state statutes, printed copies and hand-delivered one to Deborah's mailbox. I included a request for the HOA to cease harassment and confirm, in writing, the cancellation of the unjust fines. Then I installed more cameras, not just doorbell cams, but discreet ones hidden in birdhouses behind the porch lights, nestled in decorative lawn stones. The next morning, I found my tires slashed. 4 clean cuts. Deborah walked by as I waited for roadside assistance. She paused with a practiced gasp. Oh, what a shame. Pine Haven used to be so safe before people stopped following the rules. Her eyes were cold as steel. By the time the tow truck left and I replaced all 4 tires, I was no longer questioning what I was up against. This wasn't overzealous policy enforcement, it was targeted harassment. Deborah had decided I was a threat, and her son was her enforcer. I reviewed the footage from the night before. Tyler hadn't just slashed the tires. He had walked directly up to my porch afterward, stopping inches from the camera mounted under the light fixture. And then, calmly, he lifted a canister and sprayed the lens. Black. Warning. I forwarded the video to my lawyer with a written affidavit. Her response was swift. "I'm drafting a cease and desist letter," she wrote. "These fines are unlawful. And the vandalism, that's criminal. This is beyond an HOA dispute now." She included state laws that protected homeowners from HOA overreach, citing that security and privacy supersede any informal neighborhood expectations. The bylaws clearly required notification and owner permission in emergencies, nothing more. No key handovers. No unwarranted access. I made 5 copies of the legal document and mailed one to each HOA board member certified. But I knew better than to expect a peaceful outcome. That night, I sat in darkness at my kitchen island, the monitors in front of me glowing softly as I watched every inch of my property through hidden feeds. Midnight.1:00 a.m. At 1:47 a.m. Tyler reappeared. He stood across the street, staring at my house from his driveway. He didn't move, didn't shift, just watched. I left the blinds open so he'd know I could see him. He finally turned and walked inside without a word. The next morning, I found my garden lights, smashed glass shards scattered like confetti along the path to my front porch. No camera caught the act, but the silence was the real weapon now. The HOA didn't issue a new fine. Instead, a folded letter arrived in my mailbox, unsigned, typed, no envelope. Greater than rules exist for everyone's safety. Isolation makes mistakes happen. I stared at the words, bile rising in my throat. They wanted me anxious, cornered, alone. They didn't understand they were provoking the wrong man. The following afternoon, I came home to find 3 board members waiting on my porch. They stood uneasily, like a trio of accountants sent to collect from a mob boss. One clutched a manila folder. "We're here regarding your continued violations," the woman with graying hair began, "and the letter you sent," added a lanky man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Why don't you come in?" I offered, opening the door. "Let's clear this up." Inside, I laid everything out, a printed copy of the HOA bylaws with annotations, a copy of my lawyer's letter, state statutes on homeowner privacy, photos of the tire slashing, the broken lights, the vandalized camera, the mysterious typed letter, the footage of Tyler circling my property at night. The room fell silent. "There's been a misunderstanding," the treasurer finally murmured. "The key policy is traditional. It's not, technically in the documents." "Traditional?" I repeated. "Then why the threats? Why the fines?" No one answered. I leaned forward. Why would anyone surrender their house keys to a group of civilians with no legal authority? Still silence. They looked ashamed, but not surprised. One mumbled something about just going along to keep the peace. They left without offering further explanation. I knew then. The board wasn't complicit. They were hostages. On Saturday, I received a hand-delivered envelope from Tyler himself. No smile this time, just the cold flicker of resentment in his eyes. "Mom wanted to make sure you got this," he said. "It was an invitation, not a friendly one. A community-wide barbecue hosted by the HOA. Mandatory attendance encouraged. For all residents," it read. The tone was polite. The subtext was not. I knew what it was. A public trial. I didn't hide. I went. The park was filled with plastic tables, tents, and the aroma of grilled food. Deborah stood near the barbecue station, smiling like royalty at a public feast. When she saw me, her face lit up with performative joy. Everyone meet our newest resident, the security expert who thinks his house is Fort Knox. Laughter rippled across the lawn. Light, but sharp. I ignored her and found a table near the edge. A few brave neighbors joined me, Frank and his wife, a young mother pushing a stroller, and a man I recognized from 2 blocks down. Quite the entrance. Frank muttered. "She's putting on a show," I said, from the shadows near the trees. I saw Tyler vanish. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed motion detected. I opened my live feed quietly. There he was, Tyler Wilson. At my front door, I tapped the video. He jiggled the handle, moved to the side window, took something from his pocket, a Slim Jim. He was trying to break in. I didn't move. I just watched, hands clenched. My hidden camera and the porch light got it all. After a few failed attempts, Tyler gave up and jogged back across the lawn, arriving just as an ambulance pulled in near the barbecue. Someone had collapsed. "Grace," Frank said, alarmed. "Looks like heat stroke," the crowd buzzed with concern. I looked around. Deborah was already at the front, playing the concerned leader. "Poor timing," she said when I reached the cooler. Grace was just about to tell everyone about her vacation plans. I froze. Vacation plans. I remembered what Grace told me. She'd refused to give her keys. But she was leaving town. And the Wilsons knew. The next day, I walked the neighborhood not as a victim, but as a witness. People were still wary, but a few stopped me. "We heard about what Tyler did," said the young mom with the stroller. "You're not crazy. We've all had strange things happen." A retired couple told me their story. They'd given up their keys years ago after a misunderstanding with the HOA over their garage paint color. They were snowbirds gone all winter. It seemed convenient to let the HOA check in. But now, they weren't so sure. Another man shared that his tool shed had been rifled through after a public disagreement with Deborah. No signs of forced entry, no theft, just disturbed. Each conversation peeled back another layer of fear, of complicity. Pine Haven Gardens wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a controlled environment. And the Wilsons were the gatekeepers, but not anymore. The hidden camera footage, the vandalism, the fines, the letters. Tyler's break-in. I had evidence. They had power. It was time to tip the balance. After the community barbecue and Tyler's failed break-in, I knew it was time to go beyond quiet resistance. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, but because I was planning. Reviewing footage, cross-referencing timestamps, organizing documentation. Every fine, every threat, every camera angle. I labeled each video file with dates and descriptions and backed them up in cloud storage, USB drives, and secure servers. Then I made the call to my lawyer. Then to the local media. The producer on the phone paused when I told him the story. An HOA president demanding keys from homeowners. A pattern of retaliation for known compliance. An attempted break-in caught on camera by her own son. "You have proof?" he asked. "I have everything." That Friday, a reporter and camera crew came to my home. We kept the interview professional. I gave no names, but the footage spoke for itself. They filmed the orange violation notices, the vandalized garden, lights, the spray-painted camera, and finally, the footage of Tyler attempting to break into my home. "We'll run the story Sunday night," the reporter said. "This isn't just HOA overreach. It's abuse of power," I nodded. "It's a system people are too afraid to challenge." He stared at the house across the street, the colonial fortress of the Wilson family. "Well," he said, "looks like someone finally did." That same night, I contacted the police again, this time with a full video evidence package, including the attempted break-in. The detective on duty called me back within the hour. "This is enough to act on," he said. "I requested one final favor, a patrol unit to quietly monitor the street that weekend, Saturday night. 2:03 a.m. The porch motion sensor lit up again. This time, I didn't even need to check the live feed. I stood near the window, phone in hand, heart steady. I'd baited the trap with a fake vacation notice pinned to my mailbox that morning. Tyler couldn't resist. He crept across the lawn, hoodie up, flashlight off. He moved confidently now, as if he'd done this before because he had. He reached the back window, pulled tools from his jacket. The patrol car appeared in total silence, no sirens, no flash, but the moment the floodlight snapped on, Tyler froze. Like a deer in headlights, hands in the air. The officer shouted, "Drop the tools." I opened the door and stepped onto the porch. Tyler's face twisted not with fear, but with confusion, as if he couldn't understand how the game had flipped. "You set me up," he muttered. "No," I said. "You walked into your own trap." The officers cuffed him and read his rights as Deborah came running from across the street in her robe, mascara smudged. "This is harassment," she screamed. "You can't arrest my son, he was just checking on the property." The lead officer didn't even blink. "He's being arrested for attempted burglary and unlawful trespassing. We've got camera footage, multiple statements, and a pattern of harassment. If I were you, ma'am, I'd call a lawyer." Deborah's mouth fell open, but no words came out. The Sunday news report hit harder than I expected. Homeowners terrorized by HOA president over key policy. The headline read. The segment showed anonymous footage, altered voices, and my blurred face describing the ordeal. The anchor's tone was serious, even shocked. Then came the footage. Tyler at my window, tools in hand. The violation notices stacked like evidence in a courtroom. The typed threats. Grace's voice, shaky over the phone, describing her own harassment. After refusing to surrender keys. The reaction from the neighborhood was immediate. By Monday morning, someone had started a petition to recall the HOA board. By that evening, Deborah's name was trending locally online. Residents began demanding answers and resignations. On Tuesday, Deborah called an emergency HOA meeting. Only 10 people showed up, mostly board members, all looking nervous. I didn't go, but Frank did. He told me she stood at the front of the community center like a queen being forced off her throne, red-eyed, angry. "I never did anything wrong," she said, voice cracking. "Everything I did was for safety." Someone asked, "Then why did your son break into someone's house?" Deborah had no answer. She resigned that night. Tyler was charged with multiple counts of attempted burglary and stalking. His face would be printed in the local paper before the week was over. The next 2 weeks transformed. Pine Haven Gardens. Without Deborah's iron grip, the board dissolved and entered temporary restructuring. An interim president, a quiet accountant named Maria Torres, organized an independent audit. The fines against me were nullified immediately, and the HOA attorney advised all members that no homeowner would ever be asked for keys again. Neighbors stopped whispering and started talking. Really talking. People swapped stories on front lawns, sharing things they hadn't dared before. Break-ins with nothing taken. Random inspections while owners were away. Threatening letters typed just like mine. HOA fees mysteriously increasing after disputes. A group of us filed a class action lawsuit against the HOA for damages and civil rights violations. Deborah and Tyler were both named. And this time, no one was scared to sign. The Colonial across the street went up for sale within the month. Tyler's bail was paid, but his reputation was ruined. And Deborah? No one saw her again today. Pine Haven Gardens feels different. Better. Frank stops by regularly. Grace is walking her dog again, still slow, but steady. The retired couple hosted a potluck in their backyard for the first time in years. The young mom painted her mailbox pink without anyone complaining. Me? I finally feel at home. The brass knocker gleams. The security system hums quietly. My business, once disrupted, is back on track. I've even had 2 new clients from the neighborhood ask me to inspect their systems just to make sure they're safe. I never gave up my keys. I never gave in. I held my ground, and in doing so, I exposed something rotten festering under the surface of an idyllic community. They thought I'd bend. They thought I'd comply. But I'm a locksmith, and I never surrender the master key.